Stay tuned with the Sean Casey Show, a podcast for Patriots. Are back here on the Sean Casey Show, a podcast for Patriots. Welcome. This is Hump Day, Wednesday, March the 8th, and it's where we the people gather. The resistance meets each and every episode. We drop full episodes Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, audio and video versions, and the Casey commentary is audio only on Saturdays, and you can catch it wherever you download your favorite podcasts and every platform. We're everywhere that you need to be. So make sure you subscribe, download it directly to your device. That way it's there waiting for you whenever a full new episode drops. And of course, the commentary and the video you can catch, you can sign up and subscribe there as well, YouTube and Rumble. So, again, we're expanding, the Patriot movement as we need to do to stop the march to Marxism, being led by Chairman Joe and Kathleen Kamala Harris, who just loves those Venn diagrams. Joining us in the fight each and every episode, our executive producer, Joe Hosny Armacost.
Here to stand by you as we fight the police state.
Amen.
Yes. Amen to that. And our associate producer and researcher, Michelle Drusella, a.k.a. Double X. Hello, Michelle.
Hi, guys. Hey. Happy Wednesday.
Yeah, Wednesday is here. As we head closer and closer, coming up on St. Patty's Day in just a couple of weeks, so 10 days or so. Looking forward to that as well. So we got a good show planned for you today. A lot of it's going to be on J6 because finally Tucker Carlson, he is given special access by Speaker McCarthy, and he unleashed a few videos last night. I'm sure there's going to be more to come. We'll tell you the advantages and disadvantages, the good, the bad, and yes, the ugly. So that's coming up today. Also, Dr. Fauci back in the news because, House Republicans have got some emails that basically point the finger at Dr. Fauci for drafting a paper to try to disprove the Wuhan lab leak theory.
Crap. They don't know what they're talking about, Sean.
All right. Well, you get a chance to defend yourself. Just, keep your powder dry there, or keep your petri dry, I should say. And of course, we'll take a look at the sad story about border kidnappings down on the border. 4 Americans kidnapped. 2 have now been found dead. And what are we doing about it as a country right now under Chairman Joe? Nothing. And then we'll take a look at the Antifa attacks in Atlanta on Cop City and what should happen there as well. So a lot of ground to cover for you today. We start with our founding fathers quote. And, as we're going to be talking about J6, and of course the left loves to refer to this as an insurrection and or rebellion, if you will. Even they're going as far as calling it a coup. Well, there was nobody there that was armed that day, as it wasn't a coup. You weren't taking down the government. You were there to protest the certification of what was thought to be a stolen, rigged election. That's all it was. And it was a peaceful gathering for the most part. And Tucker's videos that you will see and hear in just a moment will prove that. But Thomas Jefferson and James Madison, they thought that every once in a while, the powers that be in government, the wheels that turn government, needed to be reminded by the people that, hey, we're out here. And, we're armed. And look, we already have been through one revolution. We might have to do it again. We referenced that quote yesterday on every once in a while, the tree of liberty must be refreshed with the blood of patriots. Well, Jefferson went a little bit further. And when he said that the consequences for rebellion should be kept to a minimum. That hasn't happened here in J6. Not that that was even a rebellion. It was a protest that got a little out of hand.
This tree of liberty needs a little pruning, Sean.
Yeah.
Yep.
Honest Republican governors, he wrote, should be mild in their punishment of rebellions as to not discourage them too much. That was in a note Jefferson wrote to Madison. It is a medicine necessary for the sound health of government. End of quote. That was one of the founding fathers. It said, hey, every once in a while, we need to have a little rebellion. It'll remind people exactly why we're here.
Right.
So
and
keep that
does
in mind.
medicine taste good? No. Medicine usually tastes pretty bad.
But he just said the consequences should be minimal. And that's not what we have here. 789 days later, we still have political prisoners being held in the American gulag that are being held without bail, without trial dates. We've talked about this. This is unconstitutional and un-American. And so, and again, we've gone through, I think I applaud Speaker McCarthy for releasing these tapes, these videos. I would like to see them more broadly released, especially those who are experts on the subject, like Julie Kelly and others who've been covering this. Kara Castronovo, her name's not going to ring a lot of bells, but she has a lot of these undercover videos, from the trampling of Roseanne Boylan to some of the others. And I will say this, that they were given special unfettered access, we are told, by Speaker McCarthy to Tucker Carlson and their producers. And there were some 40,000 hours of video, much of which was unusable. Much of it was just video of empty rooms. So they were able to use the computer software of the U.S. Capitol Police to kind of hone in on the more appropriate, important videos of what happened that day. The thing that they did not have, two things. One, they did not have facial recognition technology. So the people we suspected of being undercover operatives, paid FBI agents, maybe even folks that were working for Antifa or BLM that turned state's evidence or whatever, he didn't have access to it. So the people they suspected of being those kinds of operatives, they're not able to prove. And you can't obviously just run with that unless you have some evidence. So that was kept from Tucker Carlson and his producers. And number two, magically, imagine now this. Imagine everything that happened that day. Imagine all the video that you have seen or about to see. And there was no camera outside the speaker's office where Ashley Babbitt was murdered. There's no camera angle there. The angle that we saw was from that BLM guy. Remember the black guy that had infiltrated with the photographer or videographer? That was his shot. That was his angle. That wasn't anything from Capitol Hill. You would think that the speaker's office would have surveillance cameras to, from, and everywhere in between. But no. No camera. And that was the only person who died inside the Capitol that day. And we have no video of that.
Making it even weirder.
Yeah. Just so bizarre. Keep that in mind. So let's start. This is Tucker Carlson, and the first video you're about to hear and see is this is the J6 protesters. They had just come over from the Trump speech, where, remember, President Trump said to, let's go over, let our voices be heard, let's march over there patriotically and peacefully, and let our members of Congress know that we want the certification to be postponed or put on hold until we're able to get some better answers to what happened in the election in these 5 swing states. That's all. And most everybody was peaceful. And of course, the narrative that the J6 committee, bunch of liars that they are, Pelosi, Liz Cheney, Adam Kinzinger, and Shifty Schiff et al., a radical Jamie Raskin, they all lied through their teeth. They selectively edited these videos. And so the narrative you all saw, most of the media saw, was, again, more violent, more riotous, more rebellion. You certainly didn't see what you're about to see now. Tucker Carlson in his first video release last night on Fox News.
These are the pictures you've seen of January 6th. They're familiar because they've been playing on a loop on every media outlet in America for the last 2 years. There's a reason for that. But it turns out there's quite a bit of video you haven't seen. And that video tells a very different story about what happened on January 6th. More than 40,000 hours of surveillance footage from in and around the Capitol have been withheld from the public. And once you see the video, you'll understand why. Taken as a whole, the video record does not support the claim that January 6th was an insurrection. In fact, it demolishes that claim. And that's exactly why the Democratic Party and its allies in the media prevented you from seeing it. By controlling the images you were allowed to view from January 6th, they controlled how the public understood that day. They could lie about what happened, and you would never know the difference. Those lies had a purpose. They created a pretext for a federal crackdown on opponents of the Uniparty in Washington.
Our office wanted to ensure that there was shock and awe, that we could charge as many people as possible.
The first thing you notice from viewing the full video record of January 6th is just how many people entered the Capitol building that day. Hundreds and hundreds of people, possibly thousands, over the course of about 2 hours. The crowd was enormous. A small percentage of them were hooligans. They committed vandalism. You've seen their pictures again and again. But the overwhelming majority weren't. They were peaceful. They were orderly and meek. These were not insurrectionists. They were sightseers. Footage from inside the Capitol overturns the story you've heard about January 6th. Protesters queue up in neat little lines. They give each other tours outside the Speaker's office. They take cheerful selfies and they smile. They're not destroying the Capitol. They obviously revere the Capitol. They're there because they believe the election was stolen from them. They believe in the system. Here's the man you've heard referred to as the QAnon shaman outside the Senate chamber. These are not rioters. These are people who wandered over from a political rally.
And so, you know, again, you'll have to go to the video or vodcast version to see. If you have not seen the video so far, I am just, we've seen some of this before. Mm-hmm. It's just, there have been other advantage of video. By the way, if you saw Capital Punishment, I still recommend that by Nick Searcy and Chris Dugard. Also, the Epoch Times January 6th documentary, I would recommend you seeing that as well. But you look at this, these were not rioters. They were not insurrectionists. As Tucker points out, couple hooligans, couple of knuckleheads that broke things or vandalized or stole things. And yeah, they should be prosecuted. But the vast majority of people I saw walking through that Capitol were orderly, were peaceful, and were not there to try to overthrow the government as Pelosi, Cheney, Kinzinger et al. Claim.
I didn't see any guns out. There were no guns. I didn't see, actually, there was something he played, and I didn't see if we played it here, but there was a permit to rally at the Capitol building.
Yes,
at the Capitol building. And I didn't know that. Yes, I didn't know that. I knew there was a rally.
Gathered. That's where they were gathered when all of a sudden the tear gas and the concussion and smoke bomb grenades were launched into the crowd. That's what caused the crowd to rush. It was almost like they instigated the riot.
Exactly.
That's what they did. Now, the Q shaman, his name is Jacob Chansley. We're going to take a look at him. He was the poster child, if you will, for the quote unquote insurrection, which we know was not the case. Jacob Chansley, again, Navy veteran, good guy, according to everybody that knew him. And as you see, he wasn't going around attacking anybody or causing a problem. In fact, Capitol Police escorted him throughout the building, as this video indicates, again, from Tucker Carlson, Fox News.
And at the center of it, the single most famous person arrested that day was a Navy veteran from Arizona called Jacob Chansley, often referred to as the QAnon shaman.
The so-called QAnon shaman.
QAnon shaman.
Someone named Q shaman.
Jacob Chansley became the face of January 6th, a dangerous conspiracy theorist dressed in outlandish costume who led the violent insurrection to overthrow American democracy. For these crimes, Chansley was sentenced to nearly 4 years in prison, far more time than many violent criminals now receive. What did Jacob Chansley do to receive this punishment? To this day, there is dispute over how Chansley got into the Capitol building. But according to our review of the internal surveillance video, it is very clear what happened once he got inside. Virtually every moment of his time inside the Capitol was caught on tape. The tapes show that Capitol Police never stopped Jacob Chansley. They helped him. They acted as his tour guides. Here's video of Chansley in the Senate chamber. Capitol Police officers take him to multiple entrances and even try to open locked doors for him. We counted at least 9 officers who were within touching distance of unarmed Jacob Chansley. Not one of them even tried to slow him down. Chansley understood that Capitol Police were his allies. Video shows him giving thanks for them in a prayer on the floor of the Senate. Watch.
Thank you, Heavenly Father, for giving the inspiration needed to these police officers to allow us into the building.
Contrast the reality of what Jacob Chansley did in the Capitol building on January 6th the indisputable facts recorded on video, some of which has never before been seen, with the depiction of Jacob Chansley that you've seen in the media for more than 2 years. He's a terrorist, they said. He should be killed.
Shoot him. Yeah. Shoot him. Like, you burst into the United States, if he was dressed like bin Laden, would you have shot him?
Shoot him. Shoot him. It makes you wonder, who are the violent extremists here? Not Jacob Chansley. And the video proves that. But you would never have known from the media coverage.
The people sitting in the chairs need to be sitting in a jail cell.
Chansley is in a jail cell. He's been there for months. If he was in fact committing such a grave crime, why didn't the officers who were standing right next to him place him under arrest? Until now, no one could even prove that even happened. But it did.
41-month prison sentence for walking through the Capitol. All right. Worst case scenario, trespassing, misdemeanor. Worst case scenario, obstructing an official legislative proceeding, misdemeanor. Worst case, home detention.
Right.
Home detention. Not to sit 41 months in a rotting cell drinking dirty brown water where you have very little rights, some medical treatment being denied. This is the way that the Soviets ran their gulag system. But you look at Jacob Chansley, and it didn't seem the police were threatened by him at all.
No. At one point, there was 10 officers I counted around him, watching him walk through with the other 2 officers.
And then what happens? He gets into the Senate chamber, and he says a prayer.
Yes.
He prays for the Capitol Police. This is a completely different narrative. It's antithetical to what we have been told, what we have seen over the last 2+ years. And that's the key. Pelosi and the swamp and the J6 committee had 2 years to spin this propaganda. And for the low information voters and viewers out there, they got it in their minds. And now, of course, the problems I have with what Kevin McCarthy has done here, one, I do like Tucker, but I think he hurt his credibility a little bit with the Dominion lawsuit. Saying one thing and doing another on television, saying something privately about Sidney Powell and Rudy Giuliani and General Flynn. I mean, I think his credibility has taken a shot there. I'll let the video be the judge. I'm not necessarily listening to what he says. But secondly, when you get right down to it, only Fox News, why not release it to everyone? Release it to the public. Release it on every channel. Release it to the lawyers for the J6 prisoners. They're the ones who really deserve it the most, along with the American people.
I don't know why I haven't thought of this until now. Maybe it's because we're looking at the footage. But when did edited video become proof? I mean, if it's edited, it's changed.
Yes.
When can you use edited? It's not evidence. It's a story at that point.
Well, there's 2 kinds of edits here. You're absolutely right, Joe. Edit 1 is, let's say you have a 1-hour raw video. Out of that hour, let's say there's only action in 13 minutes of it.
Yes.
And so you take, 47 minutes out that are not germane to your investigation.
Right.
That's edited. But if it's edited for time is one thing. Edited for content is completely different.
How does
and
that
that's
work?
what the J6 committee did.
Yes.
The J6 committee edited, doctored, fabricated content. And that should be a crime.
Not evidence, a story.
That's number 1.
Yeah.
Number 2, to not turn over evidence to the prosecution or not offered up to the defense in this particular case is considered exculpatory material that would help in the defense of those charged in J6. And maybe they did that. I don't know for a fact. I'd have to talk to one of their attorneys. But if they didn't do it, they should be kicked out now. And if they did do it, boy, do they get bad attorneys and or judge. Yeah. That's for sure. Next up is, remember, we were told that an officer died that day. U.S. Capitol Police Officer Thomas Sicknick died that day. Remember the first allegation or piece of propaganda was he was hit with a fire extinguisher and he died of a head wound. Well, this next video segment will show Officer Sicknick walking around the Capitol after allegedly he died from that fire extinguisher. Let's take a look again. Tucker on Fox News.
To this day, media accounts describe Sicknick as someone who was, quote, slain on January 6th. The video we reviewed proves that is a lie. Here is surveillance footage of Sicknick walking in the Capitol after he was supposedly murdered by the mob outside. By all appearances, Sicknick is healthy and vigorous. He's wearing a helmet, so it's hard to imagine he was killed by a head injury. Whatever happened to Brian Sicknick was very obviously not the result of violence he suffered at the entrance to the Capitol. This tape overturns the single most powerful and politically useful lie that Democrats have told us about January 6th.
Not only was he not injured or dead, he was helping to usher people into the Capitol in an orderly fashion.
Mm-hmm.
Tell them to move along, keep it going, keep moving, keep moving. He wasn't trying to stop anybody. He wasn't saying, no, you can't come in here. Again, another lie, more propaganda from our government. And this is what, why so many people distrust our government, whether it's COVID, whether it's J6, whether it's East Palestine, Ohio, where the EPA director said a couple of weeks ago, oh, yeah, drink the water. Then he drank allegedly tap water. Yesterday he said for the kids not to play in the water. Which is it?
Right.
That's why people don't trust him anymore.
Nope.
But the big one to me is Mr. Epps, okay, who has been seen repeatedly in videos, and the night of, the day before, the day of, urging people to not just go to the Capitol, go into the Capitol, egging them on. He's a former Marine. He has denied that he had anything to do with the FBI, but he's been caught in a lie. So if you're going to lie to the J6 committee about one thing, you could be lying about everything. Once again, Tucker Carlson, Fox News, with Mr. Epps and his lie.
One of the enduring mysteries of January 6th is the role that intelligence and law enforcement agencies played in the events of that day. We know there was some number of undercover federal agents in the crowd at the Capitol. Officials have since admitted that under oath. But what exactly were they doing there? The January 6th committee worked hard to hide the answer to that question. We do know from contemporaneous videotape that a mysterious figure called Ray Epps encouraged the crowd to go into the Capitol. For some reason, Epps has never been indicted for that. But there's no question he did it.
We need to go into the Capitol!
Under public pressure, the January 6th committee finally interviewed Ray Epps. Epps told the committee that he never entered the Capitol and therefore never committed a crime. His text messages showed that at 2:12 p.m., he boasted to his nephew that he had, quote, orchestrated the protests at the Capitol. He admitted he helped get people there. Yet, curiously, congressional Democrats consider Ray Epps an ally, not an insurrectionist. Tonight, we can tell you that at the very least, Ray Epps lied in his sworn testimony to the January 6th committee. Epps testified that when he sent the text messages to his nephew, he had already left the Capitol grounds to return to his hotel room. That is not true. The surveillance footage we found shows that, in fact, Ray Epps remained at the Capitol for at least another half an hour. You're seeing that on your screen now. What was Epps doing there? We can't say, but we do know that he lied to investigators. The January 6th committee likely knew this too. Democrats had access to the same tape, yet they defended Ray Epps. No honest investigation would do that.
So, Ray Epps lied, and they lied about Ray Epps. They lied about Officer Sicknick. They lied about Ashley Babbitt. They're probably lying about no camera in outside the speaker's lobby and office.
Yes.
They lied about this being an insurrection, a coup, a violent rebellion. They lied about everything. And so why did they do it? Well, they did. They were a couple of steps ahead of Trump on this one. They knew there were going to be close to a million people there. They knew Trump was there to challenge the certification, and they knew that passions were running high, and that with the right amount of agitation, you got people milling about, patriots. Many of them are military veterans. They're not going to sit there and take grenades being lobbed into the crowd where two people died from those grenades. Another one was trampled to death. Another one was murdered in cold blood.
Interesting how Epps was working the crowd there, isn't it? I mean, the direct words. You tell people what you want them to do. We got to go into the Capitol. I think he repeated that. I can't recall. Yeah. I mean, that's a direct kind of
request. He did it the night before, and he did it the day of. He did it on two separate occasions that we are aware of. Congressman Tom Massey of Kentucky said it is, after seeing these tapes, it is time to release all of them.
They need to be released. In fact, there was a Rasmussen poll that just came out. This showed over 80%, 78% of Democrats and 86% of Republicans say that all the videos should be released, and they should.
And they should. And so President Trump has reacted. He put on Truth Social last night. Congratulations to Tucker Carlson, one of the biggest scoops as a reporter in U.S. history. I don't know if I would call it a scoop. It was handed to you by Kevin McCarthy. It's not like you dug for the information, but let's not quibble over semantics here. The new surveillance footage of the January 6th events sheds an entirely different light on what actually happened. The Unselect Committee was a giant scam and has now unequivocally been stamped as a criminal fabricators of the most important day in American history. Pelosi and McConnell failed on security. The police story is sad and difficult to watch. Trump and most others are totally innocent. Let them go free, meaning the J6 prisoners now. He also went on to praise Kevin McCarthy for keeping his word, and we'll give him credit for that as well. So I'm sure there's going to be more to come. I don't think he's done yet after 41,000 hours. There's a lot of other stuff that needs to be covered and cleared up as well.
On Twitter.
I find it curious. I find it curious. And by the way, Chuck Schumer called it the most shameful hour in cable television news last night.
Of course.
We have Elon Musk saying, the public was misled.
Yep. Yeah. That's what I was going to say.
Okay. Mm-hmm. And we have a bunch of other people on MSDNC and the fake news network who are just soiling themselves because their narrative has just been blown to smithereens.
I think it's important that Elon Musk did chime in there because he's one of the most followed people on Twitter. So kind of gets it out. So.
Well, that was what I was going to say. I mean, the fact is, and you have Tucker's credibility, which took a little bit of a ding in the Dominion lawsuit. And the fact that not everybody has this is, we've talked about that. But only Fox News viewers and perhaps maybe podcasts like ours picked up on this. The vast majority of the low information voters, viewers, listeners aren't seeing this. They're not getting this.
Right.
And so 2 years of propaganda drilled into your head, it's going to be hard to overcome that. But at least it's out there now, and maybe in history can put it all in perspective. The other big lie, if you will, besides that the election wasn't stolen and J6 was an insurrection, was that the CCP virus came from the food market or the wet market. We know that it came from the Wuhan lab. We know, I believe, that it was intentional. Others believe it was accidental.
Well, now, you could have picked it up at any 7-Eleven.
Yeah, exactly. Or any place, any Chinese takeout place, I'm sure. You could have a little bit of that,
Louis.
Thank you, Dr. Fauci. New emails uncovered by House Republicans probing the COVID-19 pandemic reveal the deceptive nature of Dr. Tony Fauci. They show he prompted or commissioned and had final approval on a scientific paper written specifically in February of 2020 to disprove the theory that the virus leaked from the lab. Hard to believe this month, 3 years.
I know.
Since the outbreak. 3 years. And what do we have to show for it? 8 weeks later, Fauci stood. He stood at the White House press conference alongside President Trump and cited that paper as evidence that the lab leak theory was implausible while pretending it had nothing to do with him and he didn't know the authors. Here is what he said on that day, April 17, 2020. Let's listen and watch.
There was a study recently that we can make available to you where a group of highly qualified evolutionary virologists looked at the sequences, and the mutations that it took to get to the point where it is now is totally consistent with a jump of a species from an animal to a human.
He sat there in front of the president and the vice president of the United States and in front of the American people and lied his ass off. The paper was titled The Proximal Origin of SARS-CoV-2. It was sent to Fauci for editing in draft form. And again, he had the final sign-off on it. It was written 4 days after Fauci and 4 other people discussed how one of them, Dr. Christian Anderson, said that this was a potentially engineered. He said it was not consistent with what we see in the evolutionary, in the evolutionary life of a virus. This paper was prompted by Jeremy Farrar, who, by the way, in the UK has big ties to Big Pharma, Fauci, and Dr. Francis Collins, another one of his partners in crime. We'll get to the reason why they did it in just a second. But here's what Dr. Farrar pushed through a change in the paper. He said, sorry to micro-edit, but would you be willing to change one sentence? Here's what they changed. They changed the word unlikely to improbable. So this is how the new statement read. It read, it is improbable that the SARS-CoV-2 emerged through laboratory manipulation of an existing SARS-related coronavirus. Quote, end of quote. And improbable means the probability is very low. Mm-hmm. To inspire belief, or it's just unbelievable. So unlikely, it's a little bit diluted. Improbable, pretty definitive. It didn't happen. So that was the change. And and so it's time, really, I think, that you get Dr. Collins, Dr. Fauci, Dr. Barrick in North Carolina, Dr. Dajak, EcoHealth Alliance, Dr. Farah, and others. They need to be not just come before Congress, but I do believe they need to be criminally investigated for what they did. And I remember to this day, we'll have to research the archives in the vault, Fauci saying he didn't think this was going to be a big threat, the virus.
Right. All the division he caused over this, all the division, wear a mask, don't wear a mask, get the jab, and then making the jab mandatory. It was the whole thing. Families were divided. Friendships were divided. It's just everything.
Constitutional rights were eroded.
Yes.
You couldn't gather outside. You couldn't go to worship.
People fighting about that online.
Families that broke up and
terrible.
People died, and they put COVID positive people back in nursing homes. It's unconscionable.
Travesty. Mm-hmm.
Dr. Martin Makary is Johns Hopkins in Baltimore. We broadcast behind the enemy lines in the blue state of Maryland. He before Congress last week, he referred to Dr. Fauci and the government as they were the ones spreading the misinformation.
The greatest perpetrator of misinformation during the pandemic has been the United States government. Misinformation that COVID was spread through surface transmission, that vaccinated immunity was far greater than natural immunity, that masks were effective. Now we have the definitive Cochrane review. What do you do with that review? Cochrane is the most authoritative evidence body in all of medicine and has been for decades. Do you just ignore it, not talk about it?
Yeah. So you don't ignore it. But again, as more and more of these studies come out, more and more of these effects come out, then it sort of just blows that lie completely out of the water. And remember, we had Dr. Wolf on here, Naomi Wolf, and she of the Daily Cloud. She was able to get a hold of War Room Posse volunteers and others. They went through the Pfizer documents. They found all sorts of problems. Besides the myocarditis and the blood clots, they found that it messed with women's reproductive systems, that the spike protein also affected fertility, young male and females' hearts with myocarditis. But now they've discovered a new adverse effect. And here is Dr. Wolf's CEO of the Daily Cloud. Her name is Amy Kelly, and she describes something that male legislators may be very interested in.
One thing that comes up in the results of adverse events related to the penis is just general penis injury. It doesn't say more than that. But the other things it goes into are quite concerning. One thing it mentions is penile vein thrombosis, and thrombosis is a blood clot. So, of course, that is always a bad thing to have going on anywhere in your body. And another thing that shows up is penile neoplasm, which a neoplasm is a malignant lesion. There's also something called penile intraepithelial neoplasm. Again, it's rare. It's a precancerous disease of the outer skin layer or the epidermis of the penis. We probably have all heard of neoplasms, and quite concerning that would be an adverse event. It goes on to show penile squamous cell carcinoma, which it says on the internet on medical sites is quite uncommon in the U.S. typically, but it is being seen now as an adverse event of the COVID mRNA vaccines.
Wow.
And there you have it. The spike protein, we know with the liquid nano particle, it can go anywhere in your body, brain, heart, reproductive organs, anywhere, and cause problems. And so maybe the male legislators that have ignored all of these side effects because it didn't, quote unquote, adversely affect them, maybe they'll pay attention now that it has something to do with the male genitalia.
I know my niece was trying to get it out there about the, female reproductive problems they were seeing and linking it back to the job. And time after time, she was getting taken down by Instagram.
Yeah, well,
tagged for misinformation.
As if Instagram is the authoritative word on anything,
right?
I mean, these social media companies are just, again, they really know nothing.
No,
they're just spoon-fed propaganda by the government. We know that. We know the government had a backdoor to Facebook. We know the government was controlling Twitter. We know the government did the same thing with Instagram. So sorry, the same lies that we're hearing through our big media. It's happening through big social media. It's through the alternative media, through podcasters and talk radio, and maybe a few underground websites and publications that we're getting the truth. All right. Sad news. And again, I hate to say this because I don't like to be the harbinger of bad news, but anybody that's considering a trip to Mexico, think again.
Oh my gosh.
It's just not worth it. It's like we talk about it all the time. We don't go to West Baltimore or East Baltimore, and some of us don't go to the city now at all because it's a war zone. The same, and I don't care where you are.
Right.
Cabo might be a little less dangerous, but anywhere south of the U.S. border, which has now moved remarkably north, thanks there is no border, you're in danger. And a woman who went to Mexico for a cheap tummy tuck, of all things. 4 people went. 2 of them are now dead, and the other 2 are alive, but regretting the whole thing. Here's Texas Congressman Mike Gonzalez.
4 Americans getting kidnapped is just a small example of why I have a bill, the Security First Act, that labels cartels as terrorist organizations.
They should be. FTOs, foreign terrorist organizations. They should be treated as such. And, of course, Senator John Cornyn, also of Texas, he states the obvious here.
It's not safe any longer, and kidnappings are fairly frequent. And the kidnappers will keep you until the ATM machine, you go past midnight, so you can make 2 separate day withdrawals to pay the ransom.
And the idiot Mexican president, his name is, It's Lopez Obrador. He's complaining that the U.S. media coverage is sensationalizing this. Okay.
2 people dead? How can you sensationalize that?
We've seen the video of bodies being dragged from the cars, women being pushed into the back. And again, the FBI has offered a $50,000 reward for the victim's return and the arrest of the kidnappers. I didn't think we negotiated with terrorists. We shouldn't anyway.
Wow, no.
But Tony Gonzalez, he's a veteran. And he says what's happening at the border, he has seen this before.
I've fought in 2 wars. I fought in Iraq and Afghanistan. I know what war looks like. I know what it smells like. I know what it feels like. It is as if Texas and the country is at war with the cartels.
And we are. There is a war. It's an undeclared war. It's a war that Joe Biden is ignoring. He's fighting a proxy war in Ukraine while ignoring a war on our southern border being waged on us by the cartels and the gangbangers.
And our hands are tied behind our backs. You can't even draw guns.
We should be making life miserable for those cartels. Miserable. Again, those 2 American lives should be avenged. Like yesterday. Joe Biden not going to lift a finger. He is the most, I think he really is our first eunuch president. Because, you know, he's got no balls.
Yep.
And then let's compare and contrast the treatment of the J6 prisoners to the Cop City prisoners. I don't know if you've seen the video, but the video shows Atlanta police released footage of Antifa. They attacked. This was not a protest. This was a coordinated attack on a future police officer training center in Atlanta. There were bottle rockets, Molotov cocktails, bombs in the form of arson fire bombs that set police cars on fire, construction vehicles on fire, because they don't want the police to have a training center on land that doesn't belong to them. Okay? 35 people were detained, 23 arrested, 2 of which lived in Georgia, and others who came from France and Canada. One of the attackers, we find out, is an attorney for the Southern Poverty Law Center. His name, Tom Jurgens. That's a commie organization that the media loves to quote when it comes to certain issues. But the Attorney General of Georgia, Chris Carr, remarking about Antifa coming to Georgia and trying to attack police.
In Georgia, if you come here and if you throw Molotov cocktails, bottles, rocks, engage in violence in order to change public policy, if you are going to damage infrastructure to change public policy, we have a law on the books that's domestic terrorism, and you will be charged.
I got to tell you something. I watched this video, and the police were under fire. Now,
yes,
they weren't being shot at with live rounds, but they didn't know where the stuff was coming from. I'm just stunned at the restraint showed by the Atlanta police and law enforcement down there. They could have leveled the whole crowd. And maybe that's what they wanted. Maybe they wanted to be sacrificial lambs, but Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene is now introducing a bill to designate Antifa. We got the cartels as foreign terrorist organizations. Antifa should be a domestic terrorist organization.
They have been attacking the site of a future Atlanta police training facility, and we need that in Atlanta. Atlanta is one of the cities in America that has the worst crime rates because of the pathetic Democrat control in the city of Atlanta, and we're fed up with it.
Well, let's see if they're fed up with it, because you're going to have to get a lot of people on board with you there. But again, Antifa, there's been the left, as the progressive Marxists in this country have tolerated this kind of violence through the summer of 2020. It was Antifa and BLM in the aftermath of George Floyd that went on a path of destruction. $2 billion worth of damages, 26 lives were taken that day, and I think very few of them actually were held accountable. Remember the Minnesota Bail Project? That was organized by Kamala Harris. They got a lot of those people. Well, same thing has happened in Atlanta. The Atlanta Solidarity Fund asking for donations yesterday, saying, quote, committed to providing all assistance and access to legal representation for everyone arrested protesting. And this was not protesting.
Yeah, right. No. If J6 prisoners are in the gulag in DC, then those protesters over the weekend that are in jail need to stay there.
Yep, double standard. You'll see. They're probably out already, if not soon. But 789 days later, J6 folks like the Q shaman, Jacob Chansley, all he did was walk into a building, say a few prayers, say hello to a few cops, and he got 41 months. These people were throwing bottle rockets, Molotov cocktails, and setting police cars on fire. we'll see what kind of sentence they get, if any. And that is our Injustice Department for you today. Time for our cringe moment, and it belongs once again to Chairman Joe. He was joking about he had a brain aneurysm at one point, and he always likes to make jokes. And here's the latest regarding the brain aneurysm operation.
And I had these terrible headaches, was diagnosed with having anyway, they had to take the top of my head off a couple times, see if I had a brain.
Come on, man.
Was that before?
The top of my head off a couple of times. Like the first time they weren't sure. They had to take it off a couple of times to make sure he had a brain.
It wouldn't matter if he had balls. He wouldn't know where to find them.
Was that before or after he fell up the steps again?
3 times.
Mm-hmm.
This was years ago. And you wonder why Joe Biden doesn't want a mental competency test. They don't even discuss it. Okay. We don't even discuss it in the Biden household because we know what the results will be.
He wouldn't remember anyway if he discussed it.
Time for the unhinged moment of the day.
Donald J. Trump is now president of the United States.
All right, so you really have to watch this one on the podcast if you want to see it. But we'll let you watch it and you'll hear it. But then we'll describe what happens. And we wanted Joe. This was a special surprise for our executive producer, Joe Hosny, Armorcost. This is an ad for Always. This is a women's feminine hygiene product. And Joe, this is for you and your entertainment pleasure.
No two bodies are the same. Some pads never got that message, but Always Flex Foam did. It protects against different flows for up to 0 leaks. And it flexes to fit all bodies for up to 0 feel. Feel it yourself with Always Flex Foam.
Did you catch it?
Flex Foam dick?
Did you?
Is that what
Well, it's a transgender male walking with the other women.
Oh my gosh. No, I didn't even notice.
Didn't you notice the walk, the strut?
I was concentrating on what I was supposed to see, and I didn't see it.
Play it again for him so he can see it. Play it one more time.
The guy in brown.
Yeah.
No two bodies are the same. Some pads never got that message, but Always Flex Foam did. It protects against different flows for up to 0 leaks. And it flexes to fit all bodies for up to 0 feel. Feel it yourself with Always Flex Foam.
A little junk in the trunk.
That's weird more than anything.
That's weird, all right.
Holy cow.
Yeah, that's what we have going on now.
Can't get any more stupid.
New Always.
and this is everywhere now. We're seeing Hershey, the first Hershey candy bar, the trans candy bar. Did you see that?
Mm-hmm.
Everywhere you go now. It's bad enough they're putting plant-based crap out there. If I don't want a plant-based Reese's peanut butter cup, give me the real thing.
Right.
Well,
yeah.
If you want some chocolate and peanut butter on a plant, go out in your garden and put some chocolate peanut butter on it and eat it.
On a leaf. Yeah.
Right, exactly.
Lion. Yeah, that'd be great.
Okay, we don't want that, but that's everywhere you go now. This is the again the culture war that is ongoing that we know is going to be on.
I think they must have told that model to strut a certain way just to make sure they knew it was supposed to be a guy. It was weird.
Why did you save it for me?
We just wanted to surprise you to get your reaction. Yeah, that's all.
That's all.
Okay. We weren't trying to imply anything or or suggest anything.
It's all good.
Plant a seed in your head that you might be a candidate for Always Flex Foam. We just didn't do that. We just don't want to do that.
Funny.
Yeah. Unbelievable. All right. On that note, that's our liberal lunatic of the day.
Oh my gosh.
I can't get enough of that stuff. All right, if you want to drop us a line, we love hearing from you. The Sean Casey Show at gmail.com. That's the Sean Casey Show at gmail.com. Remember, audio-wise, we're there. All your favorite podcast platform or delivery platforms. And now for video of the vodcast, you can go to YouTube, become a subscriber, and Rumble as well. And we always love hearing from you.
Freedom is never more than one generation away from extinction.
That's going to do it for this Hump Day edition of the Sean Casey Show, podcast for Patriots. Thanks to our executive producer, Joe Hosny Armacost.
Thanks for nothing, guys. Glad to be here.
Associate producer, Double X, Michelle.
See you Friday. I can't wait.
And don't forget our outrages. And to our other associate producers, Hunter, Logan, Casey. Until Friday, stay free.
Don't you know we need you now?